last Friday, a friend of mine sent me a text with a link to an opinion piece, an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times. Now, I want to tell you that because I don't read the Los Angeles Times, but the reason I read this is because a friend sent it to me. And it was entitled, Why America's Record Godlessness is Good News for the Nation. Of course, the headline got my attention, and I read it. And after I read it, I have issues with it, and I thought, you know what, I got to talk about this. And I could not think of anyone better to join me in discussing this than Dr. Pat Fagan, who is the Director of Marriage and Religion Research Initiative, MARY. And so I've asked him to join me today for this conversation. Dr. Pat Fagan, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hello, Tony. It's good to be with you.
All right, this piece, the author was Phil Zuckerman. He's an associate dean of Pitzer College, a private liberal arts school in Claremont, California. In paraphrasing him, he argues that countries don't need God to be healthy, wealthy, safe, and happy. He also says that secularization of society does a better job at tackling homelessness, poverty, than faith-based, church-based charities. Where do we start?
Well, I'd start with the data. He is a professor of sociology. My main critique of his work, and since you sent me the op-ed, I read it, and then went and looked and investigated a number of his other works. He is a man on a mission, and that's quite legitimate. Everybody should have a good mission in life, and he has made his mission, actually, to develop societies, and this is the key point, that do not worship God. He wants all the benefits of religion, communities. He likes people getting together. They need rituals and all the rest. But get God out of it and get the worship of God out of it. That's his mission. And if you look into him, and you can go on Wikipedia and a number of other places, you'll see this. I think he would agree that I'm presenting this perfect. The other major critique I have of his work is that he only presents one side. He doesn't present the massive amount of contrary data that's there disputing, and I would say overturning repeatedly a number of his questions or a number of his statements. So on those two things, he's a man with a mission to get rid of God, the worship of God, and he thinks that's great. The more of that happens, the better, in his book. And then I don't think he's doing the sociology the way it ought to be done.
Let me just pull a paragraph from here, and I'm going to ask you a question based on this. And I'm quoting from his piece that appeared in the Los Angeles Times. Organic secularization can occur for many reasons. It happens when members of a society become better educated, more prosperous, and live safer, more secure, and more peaceful lives. When societies experience increases in social isolation, when people have better health care, when more people hold paying jobs, when more people wait longer to get married and have kids, all of these, especially in combination, can decrease religiosity. I agree with that statement that in fact, what we see happening is those things occur, but oftentimes they occur, the benefits of religiosity from the previous generation. It's kind of like the Old Testament, where one generation followed God, the blessings that flowed from that made the next generation somewhat apathetic, and then the next generation suffered the consequences.
Yep, yeah. And you see that actually in family therapy. You can see that all the time. Those therapists who do a lot of family therapy, you see intergenerational effects that way, where things actually start sliding down, or where they can go the other way, where one generation does very well by the kids pick up the same thing, and they become even better than the parents, and hopefully the grandkids even better. So it can go either way, depending on the effort of the people. But you're agreeing, and I agree, we can see this sliding down happening, and it is happening in America. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, it's occurring, but right now I think we're still, as a nation, we're still benefiting from the remnants, the fumes, if you will, that were in the gas tank, the religious gas tank of the previous generation. And at some point, The warning light's been going off, the tank's almost on empty. At some point, we run out of gas as a society.
By the third generation, you'll have run out of gas.
And we're not going to have the peace, prosperity. In fact, we're already seeing through the broken homes, the fatherlessness that's taking place, the increase in violence and social instability. Look, most American cities are not a Norman Rockwell picturesque setting that you want to sit out on the lawn and have a picnic.
Yeah, and one of the big things, of course, behind all of that, the homelessness, the poverty, the increased violence, is the broken family, out-of-wedlock births. Father's not there to raise their children. And religious families it does happen occasionally, but it's not meant to happen. And those who worship God regularly and raise their kids to do the same, by and large, tend towards marriage, and their children benefit and the nation benefits. He totally avoids, in all his work, I noticed this, he avoids the impact of marriage. And marriage, of course, is one of the huge benefits of religion.
And that's one of the things for the last decade and a half that has been under attack in America, and not just America, but literally around the globe. And so if you eliminate marriage or the meaning of marriage, you're going to get more of what flows from rejection and brokenness that occurs when you do not have a mother and a father who love each other and are married and therefore love their children and raise them.
That's right. And of course, the purpose of marriage is the begetting of children. It's harnessing the sexual the way it's meant to be harnessed. Father and mother loving each other, and then raising the children together is their great project in life. That's marriage. But he does acknowledge in one place that religious people have many more children than non-religious. And he does say, this is a major obstacle for us. Who knows how the experiment's going to go? That's not a direct quote, but that's a paraphrase of what he says. And that's a huge thing. Those who honor and worship the author of life give life. They also protect life more. They don't abort. There's nothing in his work touches on abortion. Nothing in his work touches on sex outside of marriage. Well,
he does touch on it. He criticizes religious people for not agreeing with that.
Yep.
So yes, he does touch on it, but from a different perspective. I want to ask one more thing. Take issue with one more thing you wrote. Then I want to move on from this and have a broader conversation. But he said he repeatedly says this that this is organic secularization. That it's organic, it's naturally occurring. I take issue with that. I think what's happened is that this is being fueled in large part by, there is some of it is organic from turning away from religion, but you have government institutions that have become decidedly secular and are persecuting religious views or forcing those religious views not to be expressed in public. So I can't agree that this is taking place organically. There is the heavy hand of government in some instances that is driving this.
And increasingly the heavy hand of elite major corporations, particularly the digital controlling one, Google and Facebook, two of the big ones, where there's more and more control and less friendliness towards religion. This is not an even-handedness.
Yeah, so it's not organic. It is being fueled by those that are putting their thumb on the scale, whether that be in some cases government or, as you said, big tech and other big corporations. Well, let's talk, Dr. Pat Fagan, about what do we do? There's no doubt. We cannot refute the fact that we're seeing a decrease in religious affiliation. Now, I think some of this is not accurately depicted in the data because many people are dropping out of organized religion because organized religion in many ways has become meaningless, but it doesn't mean that people are not religious in terms of following God.
Oh, yeah, I think people are naturally religious, and by that I mean they orient towards what is the big questions. Everybody is, what's life about? How do I get meaning? Where does happiness really lie? Is happiness in a good drink? and jumping into bed with the beautiful young woman I've just met at the local bar, or no, that it doesn't. It's not there. People being, but where does it lie? Is one of the huge questions every generation and every human being confronts, and that very quickly gets into these eternal, transcendental afterlife issues, and they lead to God for most people.
And as the organized religion, certain denominations move away from those issues because it becomes, as we even read in this op-ed, kind of political issues that we shouldn't speak of or tell people they shouldn't do. You know, what Scripture says is what we should do. It gives direction as to what, if we want the good life, if we want to experience the fullness of what God has for us. It's like Jesus said, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. It's not a picnic. It is a life of dedication, of self-denial, but it is the most rewarding, fulfilling life that one could live.
Yeah. One of the things that I do think Christians in the United States and across, the developed world, look, human life is at a level of comfort it never has ever been in all of human history. Like the married couple who's just, two college graduates, not doing anything phenomenal, they are living more comfortably than most kings lived in most of human history. We're living at that level of comfort. And I think, it's easy to become soft. And the core of Christianity, now I'm not addressing the other religions, but Christianity, following Christ, is the core of the religious beliefs of America. And, Christ never promised an easy life. And he wasn't holding that out to his followers. As a matter of fact, he holds out the opposite. And so at the core is, are there enough Christians really following Christ that way, so that when others see them, they sense, there's something different about this person. It's good. I know what it is. That's how Christianity grew. Like the greatest growth Christianity has ever faced was in the first 300 years of the history of Christianity. Every decade, Christianity expanded grew 40%. So between 2010 and 2030, there would have been a 40% growth in the number of Christians in the world. Between 20 and 30, another 40% on top of that, and so on for the first 300 years. And that was before there was anything overtly, that you could spot externally was organized, because, there was a lot of persecution, so Christians kept their head low. But it really grew, mainly because I think these Christians up against this stuff had a dynamic, real relationship with our Lord through prayer, sacrifice, and good works, fasting, taking care of the poor, doing all those pretty difficult things, but gladly doing it because they wanted to follow Christ. And I think we're coming back to that, actually, the good stuff out of all this. I think you're seeing the winnowing among Christians of those who are really realizing, this is what we're called to. Yeah, the other stuff, I can easily slide, but I better pull my socks up.
I think you're right. I think the persecution, the opposition, we've been comfortable in a society that has, for the most part, embraced at least a Christian ethic, if not Christ. And now that has changed, and it is really forcing people to choose who they're going to follow.
Yeah.
And I think the outcome of that is going to be positive. But we need to know the facts. All of society benefits when we walk with the Lord in obedience to Him. Not only our families, but when our family benefits, the neighborhood benefits. And when the neighborhood benefits, the community benefits in all of society. And especially here in America, because we were founded, our nation was built for those who followed the faith. We're not another country. We're America. And it is essential to our future success that we operate according to the manual that the founders wrote.
Yep. As you say that, actually, one of the great projects that was done at F4C was Mapping America, where from all the federal surveys, we looked at how American individuals were doing, depending on whether they were, if they were adults, whether they were married and worshiping worshiping weekly, or married and not, or broken family and worshiping, and broken family and not worshiping at all. And on every single outcome, you say, I would put Phil Zuckerman, the man we were talking about, I would put him in the married, not worshiping. But if you compare that group on all the outcomes with the married worshiping weekly, always his group is in second place. The other group on every single measure in every federal survey where you can get it is doing better than his.